to the first part of the video number 5 of the finMED capacity building tool. I remind you that this online training is intended to complement and support the delivery of the capacity building tool manual developed by the finMED project that you can download from the project website. During the previous video number 4, we concluded the explanation of the design phase related to the strategic policy. In this video number 5, we start to analyze the setup phase that leads to the definition of the investment strategy for the introduction and implementation of financial instruments. The most important aspects of the setup phase are considerations about the financial instruments and products to use, when to consider financial instruments for SMEs, setting up investment strategy for SMEs, considerations about financial instruments and products. As you remember from the introductory video of this training course, finMED Capacity Building Tool makes use of the following definition of financial instrument. Financial instruments are public policy instruments such as subsidized loans, credit guarantees, equity and quasi-equity finance schemes, designed to overcome market failures experienced by micro, small and medium-sized enterprises to promote productive investments in a way that would not result through market interactions alone. It refers to the terminology adopted by the European cohesion policy and embraces an array of financial products that not only operate in diverse ways, but are of widely different orders of scale, address a variety of policy objectives, use various modes of governance and function within assorted socio-economic, institutional and geographical contexts. The common thread is essentially that financial instruments provide funding that is intended to be repayable. So, financial instruments are meant as a delivery tool to provide financial support from the EU budget through loans, guarantees and equity or quasi-equity investments for the implementation of projects that underpin one or more policy objectives of the EU. In the introductory video, we also introduced the 4 types of financial products linked to the implementation of financial instruments: loans, guarantees, equity, quasi-equity. So, let's recap each financial product and see how they are used in the delivery of cohesion policy in Europe. Loans. Agreement which obliges the lender to make available to the borrower an agreed sum of money for an agreed period of time and under which the borrower is obliged to repay that amount within the agreed time. So, a loan is the act of giving money, property or other material goods to another party in exchange for future repayment of the principal amount along with interest or other finance charges. In general, for commercial loans, the interest charged on the loan is the market rate plus a risk premium that reflects the likelihood of a lender getting their money back. The risk premium includes credit risk, which varies with the borrower's credit history and expected cash flow. One way to decrease the risk premium is through collateral, where the borrower offers assets such as property, receivable, or investments as security which become the property of the lender if the borrower defaults, does not repay the loan. Under a European structural and investment funds, a loan can help where banks are unwilling to lend on terms acceptable to the borrower. They can offer lower interest rates, longer repayment periods, or have lower collateral requirements. Loans are offered almost everywhere in domestic and/or co-financed economic development policies. Loans are also widely used by other project promoters, such as local authorities, for upgrading public buildings and spaces or other capital investments, and householders for energy renovation. Regarding the use of loans for the implementation of European structural and investment funds, risk-sharing loans are financed in the ESIF programs with additional resources provided by one or more financial intermediary. Thus, the same financial intermediary may be a fund manager and a co-investor. The losses, recoveries, and benefits are borne and shared by the ESIF program contribution and the additional resources provided by financial intermediary in agreed proportion. Very small loans, microcredit, are available for final recipients who do not have access to credit, typically because they lack collateral and had a credit history. These microcredits are normally less than 25,000 euros and can finance micro-enterprises. Obviously, the use of loan can bring advantages and disadvantages. Pros: not particularly difficult to administer, so there are limited management costs and fees. A defined repayment schedule makes budgeting easier. The lending mechanism is well understood, reducing the need for capacity building and the risk of misunderstandings. Loans preserve the equity of the final recipients, and there is no claim on the ownership of the enterprise. Cons: funded products, such as loans, require more initial resources than unfunded products, such as guarantees. It is sometimes difficult to establish the probability of default, especially with a lack of history of final recipients. The advantage for the final recipients is almost entirely financial. There are limited additional benefits as know-how is not transferred. Guarantees. A guarantee is a written commitment to assume responsibility for all or part of a third party's debt or obligation if an event occurs that prevents this third party from fulfilling its obligation, such as a loan default. There are forms of contractual financial arrangements in which a financial claim depends on a certain condition or conditions. Guarantee involves an obligation by the economic entity to assume the other entity's financial obligation if that other party defaults. Guarantees can be provided by central banks, government, financial corporations, and in some cases, other organizations, and normally cover financial operations such as loans. Credit guarantees seek to expand funding to SMEs by underwriting the risks associated with the loan. These are essentially risk transfer and risk diversification mechanisms, which guarantee repayment of part of the loan upon a default event. Regarding guarantees in ESI funds implementation, several subcategories and types of investment are used. The guarantor issues a direct guarantee for an agreed amount of debt to cover the losses of the lender in the event that the final recipient does not repay the debt. Some type of guarantees are: a first loss default portfolio guarantee is a guarantee where first the guarantor covers the losses of a loan portfolio until the cap is reached. Therefore, the lender is exposed to losses greater than the capped amount of the guarantee, rather than both lender and guarantor sharing the risk of every default in proportion. An uncapped guarantee is a guarantee where no cap at portfolio level is foreseen. According to capital adequacy requirements in force, this guarantee can reduce the capital required for the lending bank. A capped guarantee would indemnify the lender up to a predefined percentage or amount of the loan and for the portfolio in default. Guarantees are arguably the most straightforward financial product to design, implement, and recalibrate as economic development needs change. They have most potential for impact where collateral-based lending is the norm and the business population is not asset-rich. According to the European Central Bank, the use of guarantees in domestic and cohesion policy is significant in only a few countries, and the sums covered are, on average, often modest, partly because they are frequently combined with loans in microfinance packages for a startup and young firms. Let's see the main advantages and disadvantages also for guarantees. Pros. Guarantees can preserve the equity of final recipients as there is normally no claim on the ownership of the enterprise. Potential benefits for final recipients could include inter alia, lower or no guarantee fees, lower or no collateral requirements, as well as lower risk premiums. Since program contributions cover only certain parts of loans, appropriate multiplier ratio, there is a high leverage effect. The investment risk for third-party lenders is reduced because they only bear part of the risk of default. Unfunded products, such as guarantee, require less initial support than funded products such as loans. Cons. The guarantee represents a risk reserve for the lender and does not provide liquidity. It can, however, in some cases, provide capital relief to the lender. Estimating the appropriate cap or maximum limit can be challenging. There is no transfer of business expertise to final recipients. And this is all for the part 1 of the 5th video of the finMED capacity building tool. For more information about finMED project and its capacity building tool, please visit the project website, in which you can find much more information, documents, news, and also links to the InterregMed program.